So you're after a decent beginner's pool cue at a low price, but you're bored by wood stains and printed point designs. You want something a little bit different, a little bit edgy. Welcome to the world of the Viper Underground series. Let's do it. So when it comes to the Viper brand, what do we know about them? Well, we know that Viper is owned and operated by GLD Products, which was established in 1981, and they're based in Wisconsin, USA. And GLD Products own several brands for both the darts and billiards industries, and their biggest brand is the one that we have here, and this is Viper. And although GLD Products are an American-based supplier, as you may well imagine with most of their products being budget-orientated, they are manufactured in China. And when it comes to the Underground series by Viper, which is what we have here, they are available in a wide range of different designs. The particular one that we have here is called the Raven. And as the name would suggest, being underground, the designs that you'll find on the Underground series are slightly edgier in design. When it comes to weight options for these cues, these come as standard in either 18, 19, 20 or 21 ounce options. Now when it comes to price for the Viper Underground series, the price can vary because, like I said, they do a lot of different designs. And each of those designs is available in 4 different weights, and we found that the weight can also affect the price of the cue. But typically you should find that most underground cues sit between $45 and $55. So we're going to give this an average price for the Viper Underground of $50. And it's worth noting that Viper do actually run regular promotions on these cues via Amazon, and sometimes you can pick these up really cheap. For example, we got this for $36 on a promotion. And we will be adding Amazon links into the video description for both the Raven, which is the model that we have here, as well as all other Viper Underground cues. So if you are thinking of buying a Viper Underground cue, please help support what we do here at Average Joe's Pool. Please be sure to click on our Amazon links. Now when it comes to warranty, unfortunately the details are a little bit vague. On Amazon it doesn't actually state what the warranty period is at all. But if you go to the GLD Products website and have a look there under the warranty section at pool cues, it says that these come with a limited lifetime warranty, but it doesn't actually give any details at all as what that limited bit actually means. So unfortunately you just have to take that information as you will. You have to remember we're not paying very much for this pool cue, so we can't expect a massive amount in return, but it does seem that GLD do offer some kind of warranty on their cues. So now we know a little bit more about the Viper Underground series. We need to have a look at this cue in a little bit more detail. So let's take a look at the Spec Check. Now when it comes to packaging, our Viper Underground cue actually comes in a kind of a quasi-soft case. The reason I say a quasi-soft case because it's probably not the most practical case in the world when it comes to actually carrying the cue around. It is made of quite stiff material, and it does also have a transparent window so you can see the design on the cue. But although it's not the most practical case in the world, of course you still can use it for carrying your cue, and it's completely free. And in addition to the case, these actually come with red rubber protectors for both the pin on our joint here, as well as another one on the tip. And when it comes to design, as I mentioned before, the Underground series is available in a large range of different designs, and the main thing that sets them apart is they all have different artwork. And as the name suggests, the artwork tends to be a little bit darker in theme, kind of tattoo inspired, that kind of thing. You kind of get the idea of what they're going for. And the particular one that we have here is called the Raven, and on this cue the artwork has a dark and moody scene complete with trees in silhouette and a raven, as well as some text just above the grip here saying the Raven. And this could well be inspired by the poem of the same name by Edgar Allan Poe, who knows. So this cue definitely has that kind of gothic type feel to it, and this artwork we have both here on the forearms, also repeated here down towards the butt. And as far as construction goes, GLD described this as Canadian hard maple. And with regards to additional decoration, we do have some stainless steel rings. So we have one either side of our joint here, we have 2 either side of the grip, and a single one down here towards the butt. With regards to the joint, as you can see, this is a stainless steel joint, and for the pin size we have 5/16 by 18. And for the wrap on this particular cue, what we have here is a black wrap which is finished in fake leather, and it does have a textured finish. With regards to branding, we have the Viper logo right here at the end of the butt, and then we have the Raven just above the grip. So next up, let's have a quick look at the shaft that we have on the Underground. And what we have here is a maple shaft, and we have a very gentle profiled taper. And with regards to the ferrule that we have here, this is an ABS ferrule, and this measured in lengthwise at 24.99 millimeters. And for the tip on this particular cue, this is a leather LaPro tip, and LaPro tips are manufactured by Tweeton, the same company that make Master Chalk. And with regards to tip diameter, this is listed as 13 millimeters, and when we measured it, very, very close, 13.01 millimeters. And with regards to finish, we do have the last kind of 3 inches or so of the shaft here is varnished, as is the forearm here covering the artwork, and also the same down towards the end of the cue. And with regards to the finish that we have on the shaft itself, it does have a very natural feel, and it's probably very lightly sealed. And our total cue length here is 58.5 inches. However, if you deduct from that both the butt cap and the tip, this is pretty much spot on 58 inches. And our overall length consisted of a shaft length of 29.25 inches and a butt length of 29.25 inches. And with regards to diameter, the diameter at the butt, 31.62 millimeters. And our diameter here at the joint measured in at 21.94 millimeters. When it comes to weight, we always try and order 19-ounce cues for our reviews, and that's precisely what we've been supplied here. When we weighed it in, very, very close, 19.05 ounces. And our overall weight consisted of a butt weight of 14.39 ounces and a shaft weight of 4.67 ounces. And taking a look inside the cue, we removed the rubber bumper, and inside we did indeed have a weight bolt. And that bolt was a 0.5 ounce bolt, which we actually weighed in 0.524 ounces. And with regards to the centre of balance, this measured in at 19.9/16 of an inch, measured from the rear of the cue, including the butt cap. So now we've got the technical stuff out the way, we actually need to put the Raven through its paces. Let's run the technical tests. Let's make a start with test number 1 and find out how straight our Viper actually is. And in addition to a basic visual inspection, we'll be running 3 straightness tests. Let's start with the easiest, the table roll test. And this very simple test offers no real challenge to the Viper, which appears to roll very well with no obvious issues. So let's up the difficulty for test number 2, the rail roll test. And for this test, we roll the cue along the solid rail of the table whilst watching the tip for wobble. And we can see that we do definitely have some wobble on the tip. So to further investigate, we need to step up the difficulty once again for test number 3 and get the Viper onto the cue rollers. And once on the ball bearing cue rollers, we can get a good look at the wobble, and we can see there is a fair amount of it visible. And as we move the front roller up to the centre of the shaft, the wobble becomes evened out between the centre of the cue and the tip. And then as we move the roller up towards the end of the cue, we eliminate the visible wobble at the tip almost entirely, but with a noticeable increase around the centre of the cue. So it would appear that we do have a single alignment or warp issue on our Viper Underground. But what we're seeing here is nothing to be too concerned about, especially remembering that we are very much in budget cue territory. But it could and should definitely be better, scoring the Viper Underground a very average 2.5 stars out of 5 for straightness. So coming up we have playtesting, but before that we have a couple of deflection tests to run, starting with squirt. And the squirt test is done over a distance of 75 inches, which is the length between the head spot and the rear rail on a 9-foot table. And we use maximum parallel English along with a hard shot, and repeat the test at least 10 times on each side for an accurate average. And the Underground came back with an average of 2 3/4 inches, which is a little above average, a very solid result for a budget cue. So now let's roll on to deflection test number 2, the natural pivot length. And for this test we gradually increase the length of the bridge whilst using full backhand English to find our maximum possible bridge length, which we then replicate at least 3 times on both sides to ensure accuracy. And for this test it's really very simple. Longer equals better. And the Viper Underground logged a solid 13 inches. It's nothing flashy, but it's bang on average. Overall a good result considering the price.
Mom, everything you see on TV is the truth? Come on.
So with the technical side of our performance testing completed, we now need to move on to the fun stuff, get this cue onto the table and actually start playing with it. And here at Average Joe's Pool, we ensure that all products that we review have a minimum of 5 hours use on the table to ensure that we can give it a fair and accurate review. So now it's time to let the raven fly. Let's play.
I came this close, this.
So now I've been playing around with the Viper Underground cue for some time. I can confirm that the overall experience was generally pretty decent. Now that did surprise me a little bit because when I first put my hands on this cue I did think that it had a slightly lightweight and insubstantial feel to the cue, which of course is slightly ridiculous because it's a 19-ounce cue and so therefore it weighs exactly the same as any other 19-ounce cue, but I felt the overall feel of it felt a little insubstantial. So I didn't have the highest of hopes and I really wasn't expecting all that much when it came to play testing on our Viper Underground. But overall I found that this cue actually performed very well, especially considering the price bracket that we're actually in. And overall I found that this cue had a fairly decent feel to it and it did respond very well when you're applying various different types of spin to the cue ball. And I did also find that the cue was pretty decent with softer shots and also hard shots as well, so overall it was a pretty capable cue. Now the one caveat when it comes to cue ball control, especially when you're applying various different levels of spin, is this cue does tend to demand to be chalked regularly. Now of course if you're a player that likes to chalk every shot or every other shot, then that won't really be an issue for you at all. But if you try leaving this thing too long between chalks, then it's going to punish you with a miscue. And without doubt the reason for that will be the choice of tip that they fitted onto this particular cue. On this cue we have a Le Pro tip, and Le Pro tips are manufactured by Tweeton, the same company that does Master and Triangle chalks. And it is generally a very well known and well respected tip, but it does tend to be towards the harder end of the scale. And regular viewers to our channel will no doubt have seen the reviews of the Asker L2, L3 and L9 pool cues that we've done previously, all of which have exactly the same tip that we have on our Viper Underground. And the main criticisms we did have on those Asker cues was that Le Pro tip. We just felt that it was too hard for that particular cue. So of course once again we're seeing that exact same tip fitted to the Viper Underground. However, it does play a little bit better on this than it did on the Askers. And I think the reason for that is because overall this cue does have a slightly softer feel and a softer hit than the Asker cues do. And although the Asker cues do have quite a stiff feel to them, which is why having a hard tip is probably not the best combination, what we have here definitely has a softer hit, and so that tip on this cue is a little bit better. Having said that, I'm still not a big fan of the Le Pro tips. I think that they're too hard, especially when it comes to these kind of things. When you're talking small money, probably beginner's cues, then the obvious choice for a tip really is a medium. Whereas what we have here with the Le Pro is a hard tip. Like I said, thankfully on this we can get away with it a little bit, but I'm still not the biggest fan of these particular tips. And the other thing that I have found with the Le Pro tips when they're brand new like this, they do tend to have a slight seal to the top edge. And to get the best performance out of that tip, you've actually got to wear that down a little bit. And I did find I was experiencing more miscues than I wanted to when I first started playing with this cue, so I grabbed my Willard's tip scuffer and I just scuffed off that very top layer on the tip. And I definitely did find that that helped and changed the characteristics a little bit of the tip. And I did find that that did improve the situation with regards to the miscues. However, the chalk does still tend to go on fairly thinly, and that's master chalk that we're using as standard. And as mentioned before, this tip really does require chalking after every shot. It's quite unforgiving in that regard. If you leave it too long, it will punish you. So overall, I found that the Viper Underground was certainly a capable cue, and you can most definitely have a very decent game of pool with it. And cues such as this are a testament to how good pool cues can be, even at a very low cost. It's surprising what you can get for your money. So taking all that into account, let's score the Viper Underground for performance. So yes, the Viper Underground may have a slightly insubstantial feel, but it actually performs surprisingly well and is capable of delivering a decent game of pool. And at this price we have a great level of performance, scoring it a very worthy 4 out of 5 stars for performance. So without doubt, one of the key features when it comes to the Viper Underground series is going to be the printed artwork designs. Now these do definitely give the cue a very distinct look, and I would imagine that the vast majority of Viper Underground cues are probably sold to beginner players based purely on the design itself. And thankfully in the Underground series they do quite a wide range of different designs, so there's probably something to appeal to everyone. And it's very interesting that Viper have chosen this very distinctive looking black fake leather wrap. And the reason for that without doubt is because it fits in with that overall underground theme that they're going for. So it does have that slightly edgier look that perhaps matches the designs a little bit better than it would if it was a more traditional linen wrap. Another feature that I really appreciated was the fact that these do come with a soft case. And no, it's not the greatest soft case in the world, and neither is it the most practical case, but it is completely free and of course it does the job. And in addition to that, it was nice to see that Viper provide a protector for both the pin as well as the tip. And remembering that we are very much at the bottom end of the scale with regards to price when it comes to pool cues, it's really nice to see these extra features included. And another one of the key features that we have here on the Viper Underground without doubt is going to be the Le Pro tip. Now as I mentioned before, I'm not the biggest fan of the Le Pro tips. I do find that they are a little bit hard, especially on beginners cues. However, it is nice to have a branded tip when it comes to inexpensive pool cues. The reason being is you know exactly what you're getting, and so it's going to be very consistent. Whereas if you're just buying a cue that has an unbranded generic tip, the quality of that tip could change completely between different batches of product. Whereas when you have a branded tip like we have with the Le Pro here, it's going to be the same on every single cue that comes out of the factory that makes these. So there's definitely more than enough here for beginners to get stuck into. So let's go ahead and score the Viper Underground for features. So the Viper Underground series definitely has a very solid range of features that helps to set it aside from other cues at this price point, and also gives the series a very unique identity. And when you factor in the extras such as the case and the joint and tip protectors, we definitely have a budget cue that's bursting at the seams. So we'll score it a near perfect 4.5 stars out of 5 for features.
You like games, right, Valley Boy?
So what we have here is somewhat of a mixed bag, but it was really nice to see that this cue came in almost spot on with regards to both weight and size. And it was quite interesting to see when we removed the butt cap, the finish on the inside of the butt was actually really good. And that can sometimes be one of the telltale signs of poor cue manufacturing. Because very often manufacturers really won't care what's on the inside of the cue because 90% of people will probably never see it. Whereas what we saw here was actually very nice quality. So whatever factory is manufacturing these is obviously capable of making decent cues. And one of the things I really liked on the shaft on this cue was the seal, the finish that they have here. It has a mild gloss to it and it is very, very smooth through the hands. And additionally, I did like the taper that we have here. It's not a pro taper as such, but most of the weight's been kept down to about this point here, which is plenty of space for your bridge hand. And that definitely helped with the overall feel of the cue. And I also appreciated the quality that we had with regards to our joint protector here and also the tip protector. These appear to be made of a fairly substantial rubber and they've got a nice grip to the outside. The joint protector here is not a screw-on protector, it's just a push-on, but it does have quite a snug fit and it does sit around the outside of the joint. And the tip protector is finished in exactly the same rubber and has exactly the same textured finish. And both of these products have a high quality feel and it's nice to see that they're included on a cue at this price point. However, we did find one issue with these and that was our tip protector. And the reason being is that it's actually discoloured the white ferrule that we have here. Now as you can see, our ferrule is very distinctly gone yellow where it was covered by the tip protector. Now that really is a great shame because, as I said, it's nice to see that this is included and it is a functional piece of equipment. But of course, if it's going to discolour the ferrule, then it's completely useless. And I do expect that Viper are somewhat kicking themselves a little bit because they've tried to do something very positive for customers, but they've probably shipped hundreds or even thousands of these cues and they're all, unfortunately, likely to have suffered with this discoloured ferrule. And of course that doesn't actually affect the performance of the cue in any way, it's purely cosmetic. Now of course there is a chance that you may get rid of that discoloration, maybe using some kind of cleaning or buffing product. However, that's not something you should really do if you've just gone out and bought the pool cue. You don't expect to have to do something like that. So overall, that was a little bit of a shame. I don't blame Viper for doing it at all. They were definitely trying to do something positive for their customers, and unfortunately it did backfire a little bit for them. Now one other thing that I will mention quickly on this cue is that when we received it, we actually had a small issue on the butt of the cue. And that was quite simply that as we moved the cue around, put it down on the floor, put it down on the table, we could hear it had a very distinct rattle. Now the reason for that was actually the weight bolt that was in there. It hadn't actually been properly tightened up at the factory. So all we had to do is remove the rubber butt cap and just tighten that back up and it never came loose again. But of course, once again, that's not the kind of problem that you want to be facing if you've just bought a brand new pool cue, especially if you're a beginner and you don't really know how these cues go together. But I'm pretty sure that this was just an anomaly that won't affect the vast majority of customers. I don't think that Viper aren't tightening up all of their bolts. I think we just got unlucky with this particular one. Now one of the things I was looking forward to seeing on this cue, because they do feature these graphic designs, was how they were going to actually finish that design as it comes around the cue. And this is something that cue manufacturers have to work with all the time and can be something that's actually very tricky. Because when you have a printed design on a cue, it's very much a 3D object. You're not printing it flat on a piece of paper. You have to bring that around the cue, and normally there's quite a lot of work involved to get that seamless where those two ends of that pattern join. So even if you've got a more traditional design, maybe like a 6-pointed design, when you turn the cue, you should see that the gap between those 6 points is the same. So I was very interested to see exactly how they were going to do that on what appeared to be these quite complex designs. And the very simple answer is that they simply just don't bother. There is a very distinct line where the two edges of that pattern come around the cue and meet. And that applies to the design that we have both here on the forearm and towards the butt. And again, that doesn't affect anything, but I was actually quite intrigued by how they're going to do that, because making repeating patterns, especially when it comes to quite complex artwork, can be quite tricky. And of course the simplest solution is, hey, just don't bother. And that's precisely what we have here. But of course that doesn't take away from the quality of the designs themselves. It just is a little bit of a lazy finish. Whereas when it comes to our wrap here, we actually have quite the opposite. And normally when it comes to genuine leather wraps, it's made from a sheet which is formed around the cue and glued on. So what you end up with is a visible line where they come around and they meet. Pretty much exactly like the pattern that we have here on the printed designs. But what we have here on this fake leather is we don't have any signs of any seam whatsoever. And so the wrap is super smooth, no join, 360 degrees all the way around. So I can only assume that this isn't made from a sheet like it would be if it was genuine leather. It's probably made from some kind of tube that's put over there and then formed, perhaps shrink wrapped or something like that, into place. But it is definitely nice to have this seamless finish to our fake leather grip. However, when it comes to this fake leather grip, there is one distinct negative, and that is the simple fact that the grip here is very shiny. It has quite a high gloss finish. And yes, we do have a textured finish, but the texture is actually quite shallow. And unfortunately, because it is so smooth and shiny, that makes it a little bit ineffective when it comes to actually being grippy. I actually found that it slides through the hands very easily and actually provides far less grip than you'd get from the varnished finish of the wood. So if you live and play somewhere that is very hot, or you tend to suffer from sweaty hands, then this particular grip is probably not the best choice for you. Now, without doubt, the wrap itself looks fantastic, but from a practical perspective, it's probably not the greatest choice of material. Now, when it comes to the transition that we have here between the components, generally it's pretty good. First of all, our transition here from the tip into the ferrule is nice and smooth, no real issues there. When it comes from the ferrule onto the shaft, there is a very small ridge. You can just catch a nail on it, but it is very small and more than acceptable at the kind of price that we're paying. Likewise, as we move down to the joint here, the transition across the joint itself is very nice and smooth. However, you can feel, unfortunately, one of these silver rings here quite distinctly with your nail. And likewise, I also found that this final one on here as well, that one also catches the nail. So whilst the transition between all the components is generally pretty decent, I did find that a couple of these silver rings did let it down a touch. So now we've looked at quality, let's go ahead and give it an official score. So overall the quality is pretty strong, but the Viper Underground does let itself down a touch in a few places. But for a budget cue, what we're seeing here is very good indeed, scoring the Underground a more than respectable 3.5 stars out of 5 for quality. We all like to ensure that we're getting the best possible value for money when we're spending our hard-earned cash. And in this respect, the Viper Underground series does not disappoint. When it comes to $50 pool cues, there is a huge selection to choose from various manufacturers. But there's not many available from brand names that have as much respect as Viper. And there's definitely very little out there that can match the Underground series for outright attitude. They're made to have that edgy look and feel, and they certainly stand out when you're shopping for $50 cues. And with the Underground series, you're getting a solid and capable budget cue with some flashy looks to match, scoring it 4.5 stars out of 5 for value. If you're tight on budget but want something that looks good and plays pretty damned well, you found it. And so finally, we need to give the Viper Underground series an official Average Joe's rating. And for this, we simply take our scores from across our 5 test categories and calculate the average. And the Underground hits the finish line at full sprint with a solid 3.8 stars. And with a range of very unique and distinct designs, there should be something to suit everyone's tastes. So when it comes to our Viper Underground cue, the question is, should you buy one? And overall the answer would be yes. Although the cue is not perfect, it is very capable, and the level of playability you can get out of this cue for just $50 is superb. And it's definitely worth remembering that the Viper Underground series does come with a whole range of different designs available. And the pricing between those designs can vary quite a lot, and they do run regular promotions on Amazon. And likewise, when it comes to saving money, another thing that you might find is you might find that a certain weight variant of one of these cues is considerably cheaper than the others. To give you an example, we were lucky enough to pick up this 19-ounce The Raven on a special offer on Amazon at just $36. And when you consider this cue is offering good value at $50, at $36, that takes it to another level. And please do remember that we will be adding Amazon links for both the Raven cue as well as all other Viper Underground cues into the video description below. So if you like what we do here, Average Joe's Pool, please be sure to help support us and click those Amazon links. And be sure to have a good look through all of the available models, because you might just pick out a certain combination of design and weight that just so happens to be on a crazy special offer. It's worth a look. So thank you for joining us here, Average Joe's Pool. It's very much appreciated. Before you leave, we always ask you take 1 second out of your busy day just to please at least be sure to hit that like button for us. Also, whilst you're there, why not also click on that subscribe button? We've got loads more great pool-related content on our channel, just waiting for you to take a look at, and lots more to come. And so that's all from the Raven. Some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright.
I'd always been told that my ability with animals was uncommon.